Entrepreneurs aren't born, they're brewed. You are now listening to the Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney. Let's grow.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Podcast. I am your host, Adam McChesney, and I want to thank you for being here today. We're not live from AFCO Studios today. Our producer, Matt, did get sick, so doing this recording from home today. But I want to thank Half Coast for this amazing setup that they have and for sponsoring the show and basically taking care of everything when it comes to producing and distributing the Entrepreneur Podcast. If you're looking to start your podcast or take your current one to the next level, then you need to check out what they have going on. Contact them today for a free consultation. And if you're listening, please be sure to subscribe to the show and leave us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. We would love for you to share this on social media by tagging me, and this way we can get this incredible content out to more people. Today, we have another great episode lined up for you today. He and I originally met through our Apex community. He and I have done business together and could even be considered, as I put, quote unquote, competitors. But we are lucky. I am super lucky to be calling him a friend and blessed to have him in my network. I was just on his podcast recently, and he is an amazing dude. Genuinely one of the nicest guys you will ever meet, is extremely hardworking and a family man through and through. My guest today is Matt Roda. He is the founder at RODA Marketing and co-owner at Signer 57, a motivational speaker and podcast host. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. I'm like goosebumps. I'm like, man, that's one of the coolest intros I've ever gotten, dude. Thank you. I appreciate it, man.
Well, man, I'm super happy to have you on here today. I know just talking on your podcast last week and we were going back and forth, a lot of similarities, I think, just in the way that we view both personal development and then our business life as well. And those things intertwine, as we all know. So give the guests, as this Entrepreneur Podcast unfolds, we like to kind of compare the beer brewing process to that of your entrepreneurial journey. We'll start out by getting to know you a little bit better. So give the audience a little bit of an idea of who you are, where you're from, and kind of how you got to where you're at today.
Cool. Yeah. So thanks again, man, for having me. I really, really appreciate it. So born and raised Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Played sports growing up, made some bad decisions in high school, which led me away from sports and down a different path. Followed that, I'll call it a bad path without getting into details, high school and college. And then after college, I actually packed my car with all my belongings, $2,000 cash in my pocket, drove from Lancaster, Pennsylvania to San Diego, California on a whim, just figuring like, hey, I want to see the world, basically. Like I wasn't really pursuing anything in Lancaster. I didn't have any dreams or passion. So it was like, what else is out there? So drove across the country, did it in 37 hours, which when I tell people that, they're like, how the hell did you get there in 37 hours? It's like, we were just flying, and we slept for like 4 hours one night and we were flying. But I went out there, worked at a student loan company for a couple of years, got laid off of that job because they were consolidated with another company, purchased them. So they didn't need the workforce. And that was one of the greatest blessings in disguise at the time. So they gave me a 2-month severance, which at the time I was just like, I was living paycheck to paycheck, barely making anything. So all of a sudden I got like it was like a $3,000 like chunk of money. And I'm like, I can live like a king now. I don't have to work. And I got $3,000. So that pause in my life did give me an opportunity to really reevaluate what I was doing with my time and energy. And I hated the fact that I went into work one day and I went into work all the time, on time. I did my job. I did it well. I never left early, barely called in sick. Like I was a great corporate employee. And I went in one day and we 50 of us got an email in our inbox. And it was like, come to the conference room. So we were like, okay. So we went to the conference room and they're like, sorry, we were bought out last week. Like, we don't need you. Basically like, pack your bags, go, we're going to give you a severance. So I remember being like, well, that sucks. Like that I can give everything I have to this company, do my best, and still just show up one day and be told like, sorry, you're expendable. We don't need you. Good luck. Go figure it out. And I was like, I don't want to ever experience that again. So that experience plus the severance that I got, which looking back really wasn't much, but at the time was a lot.
Yeah.
Gave me an opportunity to pursue writing. So I've always loved to write. In grade school, I loved writing poetry, and I've just always enjoyed the written word. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna find a writing job. So I went on Craigslist, typed in writer or whatever, and I found a local guy there in San Diego who had an SEO company. And this was back in 2005-ish. So it was pretty early on. Not everybody was doing SEO back then. It was cutting edge. So I learned SEO. I was writing press releases and blogs for him. but it was just me and him. So I learned, like, I got to write, but I also learned how to sell, how to how to manage projects, how to build a small team, how to provide customer service, how to actually fulfill the SEO services. So I learned everything and I fell in love with it, man. I was like, this is incredible that like when he gets a new client, he adds an extra $1,000 or $2,000 per month onto his income. I was like, because, you know, in the corporate world, it's like once a year you might get a review where they're like, yeah, you did great. Like you make an extra $50 a week and you're like, sweet, thanks. And this dude was just like piling money on every time a client signed up. And I was like, so wait, like the harder he works and the smarter he works, the more money he makes. I was like, this is incredible. So I did that with him for like 5 years. I learned everything I could. I helped him grow his business. I absorbed it all. And then I started to really miss my family back east in Lancaster. So I was kind of leaning towards moving back home. So I called my brother who was just about to graduate college and was like, hey, if I move back home, do you want to start an SEO company together? Because I was confident enough that we could do it. Like I knew I needed to find a developer, like to do coding, which I didn't know how to do. But I was like, I think I can piece this together. So he was like, hell yeah, because then I don't have to find a job out of college. Like, let's do it. So that was 2010. We had one client that I was able to find in San Diego that I kind of brought back with me to Pennsylvania. And then we were just reaching out to family, friends, and associates and be like, hey, you know, if you have a business, the biggest account that we landed was a really big hotel around here. And they were a client of ours for a couple of years, but he then referred us to some other clients. So that has grown just naturally and organically over the last 13 years. It's my one business that has been around for more than a decade. I started and failed many businesses in between. So that's my business world. And, you know, Signer 57 here is something I just got on board with a guy who started that about 6 or 8 months ago. I saw it and I was like, I love it. Can I get on board? I was like, I can help with marketing, branding, advertising. He was like, yeah, let's do it. So he gave me some ownership of that company. So that's the business part of me. And then the more important, the part I love most about my life is in 2017, I was connected with my now wife on a blind date, took her out on a date. 3 months later, we were engaged. 9 months later, we were married. Like a year later, we had a house. And now 4 or 5 years later, we got 4 kids. So that to me is like the icing on the cake for me, man. Like I love business. I love entrepreneurship. It's fun. It's like playing the ultimate game in life and like, you know, creating your own success. But for me, like family is at the very, very top of what I focus on when I wake up every day. And I've been extremely blessed to find an incredible woman. And we've been blessed and gifted with 4 awesome, healthy kids. So I feel on cloud 9, man.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what I love about your content on social media, so we'll have all your, you know, links to follow you, but you can literally, like, everything that you just said is to a T who you are. And you don't see that with social media. You don't see that every single time. But I love the aspect about the family and your personal devotion to having them be the driving force behind all the different things that you do.
Yep.
And it's literally resonated with everything that you post on social media, the content, how you talk. And there's that glow about you that you're like, man, I really love what I'm doing, but I also really love why I'm doing it and the more important aspect. So I think that's the coolest thing ever, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Kudos to that.
There's like occasionally I'm like, you know what? I haven't talked about my business in like 3 weeks. I'm like, I should just throw something out there like, hey, do you guys even know I have a marketing company? Because it's just like family fitness. Oh yeah, I have a business. So
I have the same way sometimes when I'm talking about other things and it's like, man, I haven't talked about marketing for a while, but I think that's why like people like you and I resonate so well. And I also think that's why we're really successful at what we do, is because it's just a small piece to the overarching puzzle.
Yep.
I'm really interested to know, before we get into some other stuff. So you obviously had that job, you've been through corporate America, you'd seen some of that stuff. I came from corporate America as well. I've been talking to a lot of people recently about the transition from not just working for someone else, but being kind of in that corporate structure, then going to a small business and then being an entrepreneur. Was the biggest transition, maybe working for someone else to being your own boss, or being in corporate America to being your own boss? What would you say like the biggest piece of that transition was?
Yeah. So I'll share the biggest mistake I made initially and then the biggest transition. So the biggest mistake when I was working for myself and with this guy, like he would write me a check and I would just deposit it. And I'm like, I get to keep all this money? Because like, in your corporate, it's like you get your check and it's like you made X, but you keep Y, and you're like, like that big difference. So I remember the first year I worked with him for a year. First year rolled around, and like, I had an accountant do my taxes, and she's like, yeah, you owe like, I think it was like $4,000 or $5,000, because I as an independent contractor, you have to like, and I didn't know that. I wasn't saving money. And I'm like, excuse me? She's like, yeah, you owe $5,000. I'm like, I don't have $5,000. Like I had to like go on like some payment plan to come up with this money, because to me, it was just like what I make, I was spending. I was like living way above my means, and like San Diego is expensive as it is. So I didn't have that money. So I was like, oh, so now anytime we hire independent contractors, I'm like, I'm not sure how well versed you are in this world, but like what we give you, like make sure you take like 20-25% of that and just set it off into a separate savings account, because at some point the government's going to want their money. So that was a big learning lesson for me, just from corporate, where they do all that for you, to like self-employed entrepreneurship, where it's like you have to know your numbers and protect yourself and run your books and all that stuff. The biggest transition is the freedom of it. Like with corporate, it's like, okay, Monday to Friday, 8 to 5 or whatever it was. Like I get my car, I have a set schedule, I drive to work, I clock in, I do these tasks, I get my lunch at 12 or whatever it was. I have a 45-minute lunch, I go back to work, I work 4 more hours, I clock out, I do that again, I repeat that. When I decided to start my own business, and this was even when I was working with the SEO guy, there was less structure, more freedom, but it wasn't total freedom. So he was kind of like, come to my apartment office and work, 4 days a week, these days, these hours. So it was still semi-structured. And then when you start your own business and you have your own thing that you're in control of, it's just like, it's on you. Like I could literally not work, for 5 days if I didn't want to. And now I would get way behind, and my clients would be pissed, and results would suffer, and I'd probably go out of business eventually. But I have that choice. Like I don't have someone on a Tuesday morning being like, you're late for work, like, or you only work 6 hours today, you didn't do your 8-hour shift, like go back and do 2 more hours. There's none of that. So the amount of accountability, personal accountability that you have to be successful at this is totally different level of accountability and structure than the corporate world provides. There, they put you in a box. As long as you get in that box and do your job, you're good to go. In the entrepreneur world and the business ownership, it's like you have to literally like wake up every day and make that decision to go do what you need to do without someone technically forcing you. It's on you. And I work from home, and we had an office for 2 years, but now I work from home, and people all the time, they're like, I don't know how you do it. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know how? Like I have to do it. Like, yes, I have a choice, but like if I want to like be able to work from home and provide for my family and have a nice house, like I have to do it. Like there's really no choice, even though there's a choice. But totally different perspectives and realities from corporate into actual business ownership and entrepreneurship.
Yeah, no, I resonate a lot with that. And I appreciate you sharing that, because I think there's a lot of people that are listening to this podcast that maybe they're thinking about making that jump. I've had multiple people reach out and they're like, I want to be an entrepreneur. And then they realize that there is that aspect of making the transition, whether it's from corporate America or just working for someone else. So definitely appreciate you sharing that. The next thing that we'll kind of get into is, what are 3 key things? We like to refer to them as ingredients. What are key 3 ingredients that have made you successful in your journey thus far?
Yeah, awesome question, man. So I would say I'm going to throw optimism out there as the first one. I think if you, and so this is for my personal life and business, but business focus. I feel like you have to approach every day as if things are going to work out in your favor. And then that's a piece of it. And you're hopeful every day that things work out in your favor, but then reality smacks you in the face, a couple days a week in different instances where it doesn't work out in your favor and something goes wrong. You still have to remain optimistic that you're capable of handling that situation and making the best of it and using it to your advantage, no matter how bad it seems. Without that element, I feel like you could just get beaten up, like disappointed, deflated, like all those feelings that entrepreneurs experience on a daily, weekly basis. If you don't have optimism as an overarching feeling that overrides all those other pessimistic feelings, you could just get knocked down and never get back up. So I think you have to approach every day as if things will work out. And then when they don't, approach that circumstance as if, of course, I can figure this out. It'll work out once I, do whatever I need to do to get past that. The second one I would say is discipline. And now again, that's what I like about you and me. Like everything I'm sharing is like personal business. Like these all work in both worlds for you. But discipline in business, like kind of what I said about that transition, if you're not disciplined to show up and do the work because no one's making you do it but yourself and the reality you want to create, you're going to be screwed. Like there are days where like, I don't want to come down here, work for 6 hours, or there's projects I don't want to deal with that day because it's just like, here we are again, like doing the same thing that I've been doing the last 13 years. Like I'd rather not have to deal with this today. Delegating and building a team so I don't have to be so much in the business. I can work more on the business. Like that takes discipline to get out of my comfort zone and trust other people to do the job as well as I can, even though initially I don't think they can, and then they prove me wrong and they do it better than I could. So there's the aspect of just knowing what needs to get done and actually having the discipline to do it. And then I would say the third one is patience, man. Like that's probably why most of my businesses that have failed is because I get like that squirrel mentality where it's like, oh, cool squirrel, or like, oh, golden egg over there, I'm going to go chase that. And then I chase it for a little bit and it doesn't work out right away. And I'm like, it's not going to work out. So I throw that one into the trash and then I focus on RODA marketing and I look for the next squirrel golden egg and I go after that one. The reason RODA marketing has succeeded and continues to succeed and will succeed for as long as we want to run this business is because we had the patience for the first, I'd say 3-4 years was like, barely making enough to like pay our employees or independent contractors and making sure that we were getting paid. We were living, definitely living paycheck to paycheck. It wasn't, the guy that I watched in San Diego, at the time when I was leaving, he was probably making, $15,000 a month or whatever it was. And to me, that was like astronomically high numbers. And, then I start my business and we're like $3,000 a month, $4,000 a month. And that's got to be split between my brother and me as business owners and then pay our employees. So it's like, by the end of that, you're like, okay, I got like $800 that I can like call my own this month. If I would not have had the patience and the belief that this was going to work out and I could get to those $15,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 months with a business like this, I would have given up on this probably 8 years ago. And I don't know where I'd be today. So entrepreneurship, yes, you can get lucky and hit that, get rich quick business model, and they do exist, and that, probably happens more than I know or have heard about. But the stories I hear from business owners I work with and friends, who are in the game with me, it's a long-term game, man. It's like, you've got to buckle up and be ready for the long ride. And if you're not, it's probably not meant for you because it's not something that's going to happen overnight. And if you can't be resilient and see it through, you're not going to get to the finish line that you're seeking.
Yeah. Those three: optimism, discipline, and patience are key. I think it translates to life, as you mentioned, right? So,
Yep.
and you mentioned that overnight success, or that overnight story that people like to think is real. It's not real, which is kind of leading us into our next part. So I know you've talked about multiple aspects of your journey thus far. Talk to us about some of the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows, and some stuff in between, and what that journey's been like.
Yeah. So the highest of the highs is, the highest of the highs for us actually happened like 3 weeks ago, or probably a month, like 4 or 5 weeks ago. We got our biggest client ever. And it was literally a shift in my mindset. Like I talked to a guy who was going to help us generate leads on LinkedIn. I shared all of our details with him so he knew how to attract the right clients for us. I told him what we charge and what we do for that money. And he was like, "You're an idiot, man." He's like, "Not to be mean." He's like, "And I hope I'm not overstepping." He's like, "You're like undervaluing yourselves big time." He's like, "I know agencies that charge 2-3 times the amount that you're charging and do a third of the work." And I'm like, like, okay, like hearing that from someone who's like grabbing data from other people. And I've always thought we're competitively priced, probably too much so on the low end. But then like the fear of me and like the think small that is just like built into me from my upbringing, which is like a middle-class family, 9 to 5, like, hard work, blue collar, was like, I can't ask for more money than that. Like, I'm already blessed getting the money that I'm getting. How could I, how dare I ask for more? And then I read a couple of different books, and everything just kind of like came into motion at the right time. And I hit kind of like a climax in my brain. I was like, I'm going to do this. So like I had a conversation with this potential client. Was like, I know if he agrees to all these services that we can provide, and he is happy to pay this amount, like we're going to crush it for him. And he did, like instantly. It was like, send the contracts. And I'm like, it was that
That's
easy.
amazing.
I'm like, my God. Like, so then even with websites, I was like, we produce really good websites. We don't use templates and themes. Like, we got a great designer, great developer. I'm like, we're charging way too little for this. So like the last couple website projects I put out there, I've thrown an extra 5,000 on it compared to what we were, asking for. And like two of them immediately were like, yeah, send the contract. I'm like, oh my God. So the highest of the highs with RODA Marketing is like where I'm at right now today and where we're going in the future, because I feel like, and you can't do that on day one. Like, I think you have to like grind it out a little bit for the first couple of years, prove your value, understand that you can deliver, results to a business. And then when you have that confidence and those case studies inside of you that, even if you charge, a couple $1,000s a month, you're going to make them tens of $1,000s a month. It becomes so easy to justify that in yourself. And it just took me 12 or 13 years to get there. But now that we're there, I'm like, I literally can I can see our financial reality changing this year drastically, because it would take 10 of these new clients compared to, for the last 12 years, it would have taken 30 of our current client base to get to that point. So I'm like, we serve less, we make more, and we get them results, as opposed to serving more, making less, and then dealing with headache clients that don't want to spend any money to begin with, and then want to put you through the ringer over everything. So that would be a big high of a high, a low of a low. It probably has to do with kind of how I mentioned that my squirrel mentality. And I know that's like it's a blessing and a curse for me, because I seek opportunity everywhere. And if my brother would ever listen to this episode, he'd be like, I told you so. I keep telling you so. And and I hear him loud and clear when he says it. And it makes sense to me. And I respected perspective and all the above. But then I'm wired to be like, but if I say no to that opportunity, could that have been a game changer for me? How do I know unless I say yes? So I've always sought additional opportunities and tried to build other businesses. And like I said, many of them have failed. One or two of them provided a little bit of an income and some passion and some fun for me. But the majority of them have just distracted me from my main business, which is RODA Marketing, which pays all of our bills. It provides a nice life for us. It gives us opportunity to create even a better life. And I look back on that sometimes and I'm like, okay, I've been doing this 12 years, and let's say I failed 4 businesses or 6 businesses in that. If I would have taken all that time and energy that I poured into those little side hustles, as you call them at the time, and would have just stayed laser focused on RODA Marketing and just built RODA Marketing, how big could RODA Marketing be today? And it's a low in some ways, because I'm like, God, it could be maybe 5 times the size that we are right now. And that stings a little bit, but then I just I don't beat myself up. So then on the other flip side, I'm like, or maybe it's exactly where I need to be right now. And one of these other opportunities is going to be a big exit for me at some point, provide that financial security instantly that I've always been looking for. So I'd say my low is my inability to stay focused on what is making me the most money in this moment.
Yeah. No, that makes a ton of sense. The shiny object syndrome gets all of us.
Yeah, dude.
I think we have to go through it, because I've been through it with my auto glass company, and that one sucked the energy out of me, right? Yeah. So it's money, but it's the energy and it's that focus of derailing you. So I completely understand from that standpoint. What is the biggest lesson that you could share that you've learned over the course of your journey that you would share with an entrepreneur that would be looking to save them years worth of mistakes?
One would be surround yourself with people smarter than you. And then 2 would be document and delegate from day one. Depending on what business you're in, most businesses, and I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm definitely going to the Thomas Keenan episode that you did with Unfuck Your Business. It's one of the books back there that I have that I read, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm doing it all wrong. But we're 12 years into this. So to now start documenting, and I actually talked to an agency that buys agencies a month or 2 ago, just to see what that would look like if we ever wanted to exit. And he was like, how much do you make? And I gave him the number. He's like, okay, you're right at that verge of what we need to make. And I was like, and towards the end of the conversation, I was like, let me guess, you're going to tell me I need to have every policy and procedure documented, every single task, written out, video tutorial. He was like, yeah, absolutely. I was like, I knew it. I was like, we don't have that. So he was like, if you ever want to exit, get to that point. So we have very good procedures. A new client signs up. We have new client checklists and, documents and templates and stuff like that. So we're not at ground zero, but if you would ask me to could I walk away from the business tomorrow and put someone in and have all things laid out that they could just literally open stuff up and go bang, 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 this is how you do the work? Absolutely not. The business would crash and burn at this point, because there's not nearly enough of that documentation. So anyone who's out there that wants to start growing a business, depending on the type of business, but I feel like almost every business benefits from that mentality and that philosophy. It would be document every process from day one, document every task that you do and how you do it from day one. So then 10 years into it, you're not trying to go back and grab 10 years worth of stuff and make it happen overnight. You're just slowly getting it done, checkbox by checkbox as you build. So then in 10 years, you look at it and you're like, yeah, I could literally walk away from this business right now. And Matt could step in and he would know how to do everything because he would just go to that folder, grab that document. It would explain exactly what to do. I think that the sooner you can adapt that mentality and actually implement and execute on it, you're going to be light years ahead of businesses that don't do that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. Couldn't agree with you more. I think that documentation, the process and the systemizing of the business is literally everything. Yeah. And as you mentioned, it's like when you're looking at potentially of what it would look like down the road of leaving the business, people are looking for processes and systems. They're not looking for people. If they were looking for people, they would just go find the people and do it themselves. So that makes a lot of sense. So the last thing that we'll get into is kind of we like to talk about the distribution model within the beer brewing process, which is taking the beer to market and selling it. So talk to us about what you have. Obviously, this episode's being recorded here at the end of 2022. Talk to us about what 2023 and beyond looks like for you, the businesses, et cetera.
Yeah. So for me, it's kind of what I've been doing the last couple of years, which is like extreme ownerships, like discipline, fitness, family first, kind of all the things that I live and breathe. Like I don't really see much on a personal level changing. For RODA Marketing, we're rebranding our website. We got a new designer a couple months ago, and I'm like, she's way better than like what we're currently at looking visually. So I just want to look, especially if we're starting to charge more money. Like I feel like we have to just look that part a little bit more so than we currently do. So we're doing that. And I'm also looking at developing like strategic partnerships more so than just looking for clients. So instead of going out and trying to find, hey, is there a dentist out there that we could work with? I'm more so looking at, like, we have a company that we work with. He's been a client of ours for probably 5 years. They do IT stuff and they specialize in dentistry. So he has a client list of like 400 dentists. And I'm like, okay, I create a partnership with him where it's like, hey, Mark, if you give us your client list, that we go through it and we find 50 clients that like their website sucks, their SEO is weak, whatever it is, that we can add value to them, whether he wants a piece, like a little commission on each one of those, or he's just happy to refer because he adds more value to his clients and they're happy with him now because of that referral, whatever that looks like. That's like a strategic partnership. Same thing with other IT companies that just communicate with businesses constantly. Banks, like different things where if I talk to one person to get a good relationship with one person, it opens up doors to hundreds of other people without me having to make that initial contact. So that's a big thing that I'm really going to push this year with RODA Marketing, especially because I feel like with our pricing being improved and now feeling good where we're at, and we just have a super solid team, and we're positioned to grow. Like if we need to grow, like probably similar to you, like I feel so bad for a lot of business owners because they're like, we can't find talent, we can't find employees, we don't have the workforce to handle the demand. And I hear that all the time for the last 2 years. And I'm like, I feel your pain, but I'm like, I don't really feel your pain because like we put an ad out there and we're like, work from home, work from your bed in your pajamas. Like as long as you like are great at writing or like proofreading, whatever the task is, like I don't care when you do it, just like make sure it gets to me on time and my team on time, and like you're good to go. So it's easy for us to find additional teammates. So we're ready to grow. And then with Signer 57, similar stuff. We're kind of putting a brand ambassador program together. I was like I talked about earlier, I was optimistic that we would just launch this and like people would see it and be like, ding, ding, ding. Like I would like get like 800 orders in my inbox every day. And it would just spread like wildfire. And I'd be like, yes, like we hit gold. And that hasn't happened. Naturally, we're only like 3 months into actually like putting the brand out there. So we're now strategically reaching out to, people that we know. And do you know Jeff Giacomo?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's the owner of it. So he's the guy who started it. So between him and myself, I'm like, we know a lot of people like in Apex and outside of Apex, and many of them are pro-America, like pro-freedom people. If we can get them on board to like, we send them a free hoodie or whatever they want, give them a code, they share it. Hopefully we're hoping and kind of optimistically praying that that's our success avenue for this brand is to get people out there that support the brand, share it with their people. And now again, because Adam wore it and shared it, 500 of Adam's friends see it, as opposed to me having to somehow get seen by 500 of Adam's friends times, 100,000 different people all across the world. So that's a big push that we're going for. And the other thing we're doing with Signer 57 is a big, which I'm super excited about, is a big educational aspect of it. So we're not just going to sell t-shirts and hoodies, which is a big part of it. We also want to educate the public on like what the Constitution really was all about, what freedom's really all about, what's great about our country, what could be approved upon our country. Basically taking like the public school, from what I gather from my friends who have kids in public school, like a lot of the mistrust and hate is spewed out of America right now. Like it's a bad country and shame on it. And I'm like, no, like I disagree for so many different reasons. So we want to take the educational approach to kind of be a different voice than the mainstream media and all the other negative voices about America, and share the good and the bad. But when we share the bad, what can be approved upon? So I'm hoping, and again, praying that unique aspect to our business, and we're not just apparel, but we're also education, will allow us to cut through the noise of all the other pro-America, pro-gun, pro-freedom t-shirt lines that are out there right now.
Love that. I have no doubt you guys are going to be successful. Love that route that you're taking. I think there's a lot of validity to doing that, and it's strategic, right? So you're being strategic both about the partnerships on the RODA marketing side, strategic about everything with Signer 57. So I love that, Matt. Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on the episode today. Where can people find out more about you, whether it's social links, websites, combination of both?
Yeah, so the quickest, easiest way to do it is MatthewRoda.com. That has links to Signer 57, Battlefield Mastermind, RODA Marketing. Almost positive it has links to like my personal Facebook and Instagram account. So that's the easiest way. Or if you just go to Google and type in Matthew Roda, you'll find my Facebook page, my Instagram stuff, all that thing.
Awesome. Well, we'll have all that in the show notes. Matt, thanks again for coming on today, man. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure, brother. Thanks for having me, man.
Of course. And I want to thank you again to the audience for tuning into today's podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, download, and leave a 5-star review so that way we can get this content out to more people. And thank you again to Half Coast Studios. If you're in St. Louis and looking to start your own podcast or take your current one to the next level, seriously, come check out what they have going on. We'll see y'all next week. And remember, entrepreneurs aren't born, they are brewed.
I'm an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs aren't born, they're brewed. Thank you for listening to Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney.